Zoom town hall roundtable discussion with the Home Builders Association of Durham, Orange, and Chatham County. And I'm going to turn it over to the CEO of the HBA, and that is Holly Precaro. Holly, take it away. Introduce your panelists, please.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having us. I'm super excited about this group of builders that we have for your town hall today. They're actively building in Orange and Chatham counties. They are very committed to their Home Builders Association. Jan was president in 2018 of the HBA DOC. Randy was president of the HBA DOC in 2015. And Jeff was president of the Raleigh Wake HBA in 2019. I also want to say a little something about them just personally. They are extremely charitable and have big hearts. Jan this year convinced Lennar, one of our big volume builders, to be a blitz builder for Habitat Durham. Randy and his wife Lori have traveled to Nicaragua every year for the past, I think, 15, 16 years to do incredibly generous service projects. He is also a biannual blitz builder. And Jeff and his Hearthstone Luxury Homes built a home for a wounded Iraq soldier through the Gary Sinise Foundation. And that's something I think is super important, and they probably wouldn't say that about themselves. So I wanted to tell you about that. So I want them to also tell you a little bit about their building company and the community, the builds that they're doing in your communities. So let's start with Jan. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll get into the panel of questions.
Thank you, Holly. Good morning. Hi, everybody. I'm Jan Hasbrook, and I'm a new home consultant for Lennar out of Chandler Woods in Chapel Hill. This is my 28th year in new home sales. As Holly mentioned, I have the honor of being the president of the HBA of Durham, Orange, and Chatham counties in 2018, and I received the 2019 Builder of the Year Award. I'm very proud of that. In 2017 and 2015, both, I was awarded Salesperson of the Year by the Triangle Sales and Marketing Council. I hold the MERM, Master CSP, CGP, and CRS designations. So I'm really glad to be here and representing the larger builders in our market area to give everyone a feeling for what's been going on and what we project will be going on in the weeks and months to come.
Super.
Jeff?
Beg your pardon. Hi, I'm Jeff Logston. Good morning, everyone. I've been in home building over 30 years, have my own company here in the Triangle for the last 10. We build extensively throughout Chatham and Orange counties. Hopefully we know many of you through, any of you that do custom home work, hopefully we've met you already and had mutual clients together. I have a small staff, but we build 15 to 20 homes a year in the 800 to $1.5 million price range. Been active in both home builders associations, both in Raleigh, Wake County, and also Durham, Orange, Chatham. We've had many, many new homes in the Parade of Homes in Durham, Orange, Chatham, and have won many awards we're very proud of. So we enjoy working throughout those various areas. We build on customers' own land. We build in communities. So we're very active in one of the larger custom home building companies, true design build companies in the Triangle. So again, I've been in business a long time, and we are looking forward to, I'm also a broker, by the way, and so we will have a couple of our agents joining your association here shortly. We're currently members of the Triangle Multiple Listing and Raleigh Regional Association of Realtors, so we'll be joining a couple folks here soon as well. So we look forward to a good discussion today about what's going on in the marketplace.
Nice to see everybody virtually. I'm Randy Lanu. I'm the president of BuildSense. We just passed our 20th anniversary, and our niche is well-crafted, high-performance design-build projects. A little bit about BuildSense. About 60% of our work is with partner architects we know in the community, and about 40% of our work is with the independent architecture firm that's under the same roof as our building company. About half of our work is new construction, and about half of our work is renovations and major additions. all of our work is custom, where we build on contract with owners on their land. And there's about 28 of us. So, and one other thing, we build about 15 projects a year. So.
Great, thank you guys. So we're here to talk about how the COVID-19 has changed the landscape of building. And so looking back over the past, I guess, 3+ months, let's start with a discussion on whether or not you're seeing any disruptions in supply chain, labor force, inspections. And if so, how significant has those impacts been on your construction timing? And so let's start with Jan, Jeff, Randy.
Thank you, Holly. Well, after a moratorium on starts during the worst of the shutdown, and to put in context, we opened up in Chandler Woods in mid-December and have had 20 sales since then to date. But after that moratorium, we're back to now to 3 starts a month after a 6-week moratorium. We initiated safety protocols from the outset of the pandemic shutdown that were designed to keep our trade partners safe. We set up hand washing stations, banned food trucks, and limited workers to 1 trade per home at any given time. Now, recently we've been having about 1 trade partner a week across the entire division reporting positive coronavirus tests in their crews. While there hasn't been a large outbreak, the number of ongoing cases is worrisome. Chapel Hill inspectors have required homes to be unoccupied to complete an inspection. And with that 6-week moratorium on speculative starts from mid-March to the end of April, I believe we took the pressure off both trade partners and inspectors, which helped everyone get through the most difficult time. Now, our biggest supply chain challenge has been cabinetry. One of our plants was in Pennsylvania, which experienced a full shutdown during the stay-at-home order. Now, instead of 3 weeks, we're budgeting 6 weeks from frame to cabinet delivery. Municipal inspection scheduling is at pre-COVID levels. My props to the inspections department. The biggest bottleneck for us right now is plumbers. And of course, the very wet weather has slowed us down for weeks at a time.
From our standpoint, as a true custom builder, we have much lower volume than what Lennar has had to work with. And we're in fact very, very pleased about the efforts of the state and local home builders associations that worked with our local and state government officials to allow construction to remain essential. So that was a very, very big deal, not to be taken for granted. Other states like Pennsylvania, they were not essential, and so there was a complete shutdown. So from our point of view, we have at any point in time 10 to 15 new homes under construction. 4 out of 5 of those are under the buyer's construction perm loans. So we've actually seen very little downturn in our construction cycle and in our inspections. Now, we're in a much smaller scale than what Lennar, so we would have a much more narrow view of that, but we do build in all 4 counties around the triangle. So as the inspection departments have evolved, we have evolved with them. So our main issues have been a little bit of out of the blue, like interior doors, for example. A plant turned out to be in Pennsylvania. We had no idea they were built in Pennsylvania, but because they were shut down, we had a downturn or a slowdown on interior doors. But it's been relatively minor from our perspective. We've been crossing our fingers every day it stays that way. The banks have continued to fund construction loans. Our buyers, I think our buyers at this price range see the other side of this COVID issue. And so while we have adopted every single safety protocol that's out there, from masks to signs to hand washing to social distancing, we've adopted all that immediately. Our buyers have adopted it, and we have just rolled with the punches. So frankly, from a business standpoint, we have experienced very little in terms of slowdown or distraction from the COVID situation. We had only one person in our small world that was affected, directly affected, one of our home buyers. Within a few months after moving in, the wife contracted the virus and was on a ventilator, and she's now at home recovering. So that's really the only close personal situation that we've encountered, and we're thankful for that. Our subcontractors, we did slow down our scheduling, I must say. So, Jan, to your point about cutting down the number of people in a home at any point in time, but in the big picture, we had a very, very limited effect on our business so far.
Yeah, I can sort of echo or ditto some of the information that Jeff and Jan shared from safety protocols in place and what have you. But I agree wholeheartedly, even down to the specifics. One of the places where we've seen a slowdown or been that's heavily affected our jobs is cabinetry. But we've also been affected by infections or possible exposures on site. We had an architect, for example, that was symptomatic and that exposed a couple members of our crew sort of earlier in the curve of the pandemic. And our response was to shut down that site and send the people home that had that were exposed to wait it out either for testing or for the 14-day period. Twice with a masonry crew, we've had that issue, and both times that's resulted in one case shutting down the site, in the next case actually sending the crew home. Which of course was a critical path item on the job, so ultimately slows down the job. I think the biggest effect for us is that while we're normally quite schedule performance driven, I find myself asking our team to do just the opposite of what we usually ask them to do, which is to slow down, pace it out, limit the number. We have pretty strict limits on the number of people that can be inside a given job site or on a given job site. And for us, that really matters. So all of our jobs are not crazy extended, but I would say all of our jobs are being drawn out much further than we ordinarily would have if we had been running these jobs outside of a pandemic.
So it sounds like my next question was going to be on whether or not you would be seeing less units online in this calendar year and impact on construction financing. And it kind of sounds like that's really not a pressing issue. So I'm going to move on to the next question. And if we have time at the end, if our attendees really want to have the answer to that question, we will pose it then. So Randy already works with clients, but for Jeff and Jan, and let's start with Jeff, contracts and purchase agreements, are you seeing a slowdown from your consumer side?
Yes. So that is a dramatic yes. So while we still meet people every week, and we uniquely as a custom builder have a model home. So this model home is open 7 days a week, just like a Lennar, basically. We just have one. We did have to shut that model home down for about a month. So we hung on as long as we could, but then we shut it down and closed it. Our people were still active. I have 2 salespeople that work directly for my company. We were still talking to people online. We were still seeing people drive through. We were still receiving phone calls, but the momentum was definitely impacted, the sales momentum, with, let's say, the distraction and confusion. Now, again, our buyers are higher end custom buyers, so they weren't as directly affected, but indirectly they certainly were. And then the concern about what was going to happen in the future, I think, definitely slowed them down. So we were still, it wasn't a complete spigot shut off. We're still talking to people. We're working on new plans. We operate under the marketing name of Arthur Ruttenberg Homes. So we do our own design with these folks. We're still designing new homes, but as far as pulling the trigger to actually buy something, and since 4 out of 5 of our homes are pre-sold, so they're true custom homes, we don't build them first. We allow the buyer to tell us what they want and where they want it. We build that. 2021 is where we're going to be affected. So our units for 2020 are fine. We have homes under construction and a few to start that were already in process, that already had funding in place. But the newer ones for 2021, I am a little concerned. We just did, over the last 2 weeks, procure 2 new pre-sales, 2 nice, fairly large pre-sales. But our momentum was damaged to the point we thought we'd have 4 or 5 by now, maybe 6, and we have 2. So my answer is yes. We're looking for some stability back in the marketplace and the general economy in any number of ways, including COVID, to give people the confidence to go ahead and go forward with these purchases like they had planned. So we're got our fingers crossed that we'll see on the road to stability as each week passes from here, so we can try to get our sales units back before the end of the fall.
Jan, do you echo that? You talked a little bit about your numbers.
Yeah, you know, I think it's fair to say that when a market contracts, it contracts from the top down. So companies like custom home builders like Jeff and Randy will be the first to see a slowdown and the last to see an uptick. And Lennar is a specialist in first-time home buyers. And even toward the end of April, we saw across the division a resurgence in activity after a real death valley. In you know, we went from 180 sales a month to 60 in the middle of March to middle of April pace. And with Chandler Woods being at the top of that pyramid, at least for Lennar, with pricing starting in the 500s, we saw pretty much a collapse of the market during the critical 6 weeks from mid-March to end of April. But during that period, our motto was hug your backlog, and we were able to close 7 homes. We only lost 1 home owner who was furloughed right before closing, and Lennar's policy was very generous. Earnest money was escrowed in case this homeowner would get rehired and be able to apply that earnest money. And I'm happy to say that our most recent sale was that very homeowner. She was an orthodontist whose practice opened again, and so she was able to complete a purchase without loss of finances. So we're back on pace with 6 sales in the last 6 weeks, and the rest of Lennar is really cooking. I think it's not so much credit to Lennar as to the strong health and fundamental health of our overall Triangle marketplace. And all the metrics that I have seen tell me that we're among the least affected in terms of employment losses. And at least here in the Triangle, we're seeing very much a V type of recovery. Strong drop and strong recovery. So as far as this year is concerned, we're back to 3 starts a month, which was the original pre-COVID plan. And although we've sold out of our inventory, can you believe our next available home that's not sold won't be delivered until November? So a lot of customers initially were expecting, oh, prices are going to drop just like in the 2008 Great Recession. And because of high demand and strong fundamentals and very limited inventory, we've seen it with new homes, but it's even more pronounced with the existing home specialists, where many customers just didn't want to risk having strangers coming into their home. So I think overall, what I would say is this caused us at the Lennar level to take some items that were in kind of lab discussions, like projections of what our sales and marketing be like 3 to 5 years out, and compress that into a couple of weeks. So we're doing things like we set up so customers online could schedule a private tour to our model from 8 to 8, 7 days a week. We established virtual tours for each of our plans so that customers could either connect through FaceTime or link up with a video or a 3-dimensional Matterport tour. It's not quite where some projections are that homes will be sold the way books are sold on Amazon, add to cart. But we have gone into the future a lot faster than we had initially projected.
And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those innovations in a second. I wanted to then turn to Randy for a second and ask about how has your traffic looked in at least this last 3 months in terms of folks who are ready to do a custom build on land that they own, or BuildSense does do a good bit of large renovation, major home renovations. And so tell us a little bit about how this has changed or impacted the way folks are interacting with BuildSense in terms of having you work on their homes.
Sure. Remember, we're a small company, so some of the stuff I'll share with you is more anecdotal than actually statistical, but we do use a leading indicator that we look at every week about our future volume, and that's the number of people that inquire about projects. And it was pretty awful, actually, when the pandemic started. We dropped to significantly less than half of our average for a full-on 6 or 7 weeks. Then 5 weeks ago, it jumped up to average, and then the next week it jumped to 200% of average. And for every week since, it's been at least 120% of our average in terms of the number of people that are reaching out to us and inquiring about new projects, which for me bodes well. I don't know if people just sort of reached a limit where they're ready to start thinking about that next build project or renovating the house that they've been stuck in for some time. And on an anecdotal level, we didn't lose 2 projects, but we did have them put on and indefinitely postponed. So these are projects where the clients had engaged us to plan the project, and one of them just said, "Hey, this is a project that we're really doing for fun, and I just watched a lot of my worth that I had in the market vaporize, so I'm going to sit on the project." And we also work for a lot of medical professionals. This particular pair, one of them is a surgeon, and I learned something about surgeons that I didn't know before, which is that they, or at least many of them, get paid based on the procedures that they do. And so when the pandemic came along, they shut down a ton of elective surgeries. And so these folks, temporarily, but these folks' income took a pretty serious dip in that time. So I'm hoping that these projects come back on board as the stock market goes through its ups and downs, and as the medical profession gets back to some level of relatively new normal. Anyway, but I guess I have reason for optimism given that pretty strong shift in the leading indicator for the projects that our company does.
Yeah, that's a good insight. I've been wondering about people who've been sort of staring at the same, sort of not open floor plan home and thinking, what wall can I take down here and who should I call? So that's nice to hear that your calls have increased to that extent. I want to just take a quick moment to say there is a Q&A. So for those participants that are with us, there's 37 folks joining us today. There is a Q&A, not a chat box, but a Q&A. If you hover your cursor to the bottom part of the Zoom box, you can put in some questions. I still have a few more, but we certainly don't want to ignore those of you who have joined us this morning. So please share your questions or comments or anecdotes, and Cub and Ashley can cue me as to whether or not they want to be reading them or have me do that. One of the questions that I sent to the panel last week was actually posed to me by another volume builder who was doing a presentation to across the country to his peers within his volume build company, and so he posed this question, and Jan sort of started with it. So we'll go Randy, Jeff, Jan on this next one. And so other than what you've all talked about already, the social distancing, the PPEs, the extra sanitation stations on site, what other unique, innovative, or creative things have you done to generate more traffic, generate more sales, increase customer satisfaction, increase your employee retention and or attraction, and just basic improvements to the bottom line? I know that's a lot out there, but just really looking at how have you been thinking out of the box in this time?
Holly, did you want me to start on that one? Okay. It's a mix. I'm hardly an expert on marketing, let alone virtual marketing, but some kudos to the HBA to start. We had a high performance home tour scheduled that was obviously canceled. For us, that's an important event every year for people to see our work. We don't have a model home. Again, we're completely custom building on for clients on their property. So it's a rare opportunity for folks to get to see the work that we do. The virtual tour, I think, was not as successful as an actual tour, but I think it was a good alternative given the fact that we're in a pandemic. There's certainly small things like everybody else, we were struggling to find cleaners and hand sanitizers to be able to keep our job sites going. So we bought a series of laundry tubs and made hand washing stations for every one of our jobs that are hooked up to a hose, and that works, right? It's handy, it's available for folks to use, and to try and make that work. And I don't think this is particularly creative or outside of the box, but we ordered immediately when the pandemic started temperature takers or thermometers that were infrared that we can just check people's temp when they come on the site to help keep our crew and our trade partners and our clients safe. They finally came and they're in place and give us a little bit higher level of confidence that people are A-okay when they're on site. And last bit, in terms of outside of the box, is I've been surprised at the willingness of some of our clients to start planning or designing a custom project in the middle of a pandemic. And we have had a series of really successful planning and design meetings and presentations with clients where we found some silver linings and some opportunities using the virtual platform to communicate with folks. So I'd say that that's worked, and I've been pretty excited about that, honestly. So, but that's it for me. I'll pass on.
From our standpoint, we went through the hectic procurement of PPE and gloves and masks, particularly, and sanitizers like everyone else. So that was quite an effort when those things were in short supply, and we knew how important it was. So we went through many different strategies and ended up getting our hands on things. So some of those basics that Randy talked about, or those elements, I think we all did as a necessity. Internally to our team, I was a little bit sluggish on the Zoom meeting for my internal team. There are 10 of us. And we meet once a week to talk about every client, every home under construction, every new potential sale, et cetera. And I liked personal contact. And so at least, we're 6 feet away. So I did all that, we stayed away from each other. We had gloves on, we had masks on, we could talk. So I did all the basics to being in person, but a little bit of pressure for my team. So Holly, to your point about, employee satisfaction, I recognized 2 or 3 people were a little more nervous than others. And so I rolled over on it. We started Zoom meetings. So it saved all of us some travel time. So my guys, my project managers can stay where they are in the field, and it's actually a great level of efficiency now. We've gotten better at it. And so we are going to continue that. So that is actually a process improvement that this COVID actually put us a little bit of a wake-up call, and something I probably should have been doing anyway, but we haven't missed a beat actually on the Zoom meetings. So we're doing Zoom meetings. We're also doing them with our customers more so now on plan design. So our architects are set up now with the cameras, and they can edit sketches online. So with people in the comfort of their homes, these meetings are so much easier to set up now. And so they've been very successful. So we get on a Zoom call with our architects. We're designing homes, sketching in place on the screen, and it's been very effective. So we've actually had a couple of things happen that were just great for us, actually. And beyond that, I'd say more of a wake-up call to things that we'd gotten a little lazy on, including social media, signage, etc. People were still out driving around, but they weren't interacting. So we were, I guess, probably just depending on our model home for people to come in and see us, and also marginal social marketing that we'd been doing. But we did turn up those efforts, and those things, I guess I use the COVID as a wake-up call, because we should have been doing them anyway. So actually, we've still been successful with people that we've been talking to. But I did want to bring up one other thing that has been a counter producer for us that I didn't mention earlier, and that's financing. Not necessarily construction financing, but buyer financing. So there are a couple of reasons I understand that there's some conflicts now over $1 million, so basically jumbo loans. One is a macroeconomic effect that I know that I don't truly understand about where the federal government places its money. So that's one reason that the loan to values are going down. So over $1.5 million now, the buyer has to put 25% down. It's only a 75% loan to value. That was a recent change, and that has impacted at least 2 of my buyers that were a little light on the down payment part, but wanted to close on the loans and get their projects going. The appraisals will come in fine, but that's a bit of a deterrent right now for us. The other reason that I understood that's happening is that more conservative banks are looking at 2021 and beyond and wondering what will happen with property values and home values. So they are asking, they see those effects down the road, perhaps a little more risky on jumbo loan types of projects, and are getting a little more conservative on us right now. So I don't know if all our participants today have seen that yet, but please be wary of that. If you have a client that's right there at the edge of the loan to value for a home in the 7-figure range in jumbo loan, you might want to check in on that. There are still a few lenders that will have some flexibility on that, but many of them are getting more and more conservative. So I guess in a nutshell, I would say we've reacted as everyone else has reacted. It's been relatively successful, and really more efficiency in the performance of our team by using the virtual meetings as opposed to face-to-face meetings. And it's been something we will continue to do.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, for Lennar, I would have to say that we went on a wartime footing. We had over $40 million worth of completed homes across the division by mid-March. And the challenge was to convert that into revenue for operating expenses. And so I'm proud of the company for maintaining pricing, and our appraisers came through. We didn't see any problems there. We've been fortunate with conforming rates topping up at 510, 400. Jeff's absolutely right. The jumbo market has pretty much disappeared as we knew it. But this wartime footing allowed us to focus on all resources on getting the completed inventory under contract and closed. And we utilized not one, but every trick that we could to incentivize those homes. We increased realtor commissions. We did rate buy downs, and these were largely successful at clearing our backlog of completed inventory. As far as sales went, we immediately closed down the model to be by appointment only. Now, fortunately, we have 3 full-time staff members who are our internet sales consultants. And so the phone is, and email is, website is monitored just about around the clock, 7 days a week. So we were able to capture a good number of appointments. We were already working on virtually contact-free paperwork. We went 110% to that. Even earnest money deposits now are contact-free. We do use electronic checks. As far as the bottom line is concerned, take our customer care department, which is does warranty work, of course, and we were not doing any interior visits. Now at this point, we're back doing interior visits, and it's interesting to see the entire customer care crew, as opposed to just one per neighborhood, descends on a neighborhood, and we could have 100 requests pending from the last 6 weeks in a given neighborhood, and those are all knocked out within a week to 10 days. Now, as far as I know, every national builder went through layoffs ranging from 15 to 50%. Because I think what we found is by working at home, we were able to gain strong efficiencies. Even to this date, our support team, which is considerable, is still largely working at home. So as far as Lennar is concerned, we're coming out of this, are coming into full recovery leaner and more sophisticated. And as I mentioned, a lot of things that were on the table as potential improvements in the sales and marketing arena have been adopted in this in the rush of necessity to change and adapt.
Holly, if I could pose a question to the panelists, kind of tying into that, how has your interactions with real estate agents like myself changed or differed as you go through this process? Because you did close down models and you just couldn't come in. So what are your expectations there, and how has that changed? And what should real estate professionals like me be looking at and expecting from you guys? I don't know where you want to go with that question, but yeah, would love to see what your response is.
Let's go Randy, Jeff, Jan.
Okay.
Since I should probably defer to Jeff or Jan on this one, since I actually work less with real estate agents and that sort of the form of sale that at least that I understand Pat's asking about.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Randy. I actually have a lot to say on this topic. So I'll try not to, but I could probably talk for enough for both of us on this one. Because I happen to be a broker as well, and my two salespeople have a dual kind of a situation where they work directly for a custom home building company, but we're also real estate agents. So we have a lot of thoughts about this, I guess, on how we can work better together, and particularly now. So in the past, working well together, like anything else, it's communication and it's getting to know one another. We do know that new home construction is a relatively small percentage of the overall market. Last I knew, it was 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 homes sold are new construction. So most of our participants today might not have as much experience with that as others. Well, in my world, that's all I do. That's all we do. We don't get into resale opportunities. Our real estate company exists only to give us access to multiple listing service and to list our own speculative homes when it happens, and perhaps list lots, home sites sometimes, to generate new construction. So it's all about new construction for us. So what we can do, I guess in the past, similar to what we can do today, is get to know each other better, get to know each other's processes better. And I would say it's more of a partner as opposed to oppose in favor of our mutual client. So everything is focused on the client, and the clients where, frankly, it's where the money comes from, right? No matter what we do, it's not builder versus realtor. All the money comes through the client transaction. And so what we have struggled with in the recent couple of months is getting to know one another, because the face-to-face contact is so much more difficult. And when you have it, you're in a mask, and some people have difficulty breathing in a mask. So it is kind of a distraction to the typical get to know each other, shake hands, and talk about the benefit of the client. So what we could do now, and I think from a builder standpoint, what we've tried to do is get more information out there in a virtual manner. In the past, we wanted to get just enough information out there to lead to a personal contact, because there are so many variables, particularly in new home construction, so many variables that it's very, very difficult to put concrete information out there and be able to stand on it, particularly when we're also building on customers' land. So even though we have a price sheet, that price might not work on the customer's land, depending on the slope and topography and size and all the other considerations. So we've tried to put more virtual information out there. We've also tried to be much more patient with our realtor friends on, I say patient instead of saying, hey, just come to our model. That's what we would try to do before, because we get to know each other there. You see example of our work. You know, to Randy's point earlier about, you know, people want to see something. They need a point of reference. So we've tried to do more to get our point of reference out there in the marketplace and invite people to homes, even though they're under construction, which is also not something we always want to encourage. Sometimes those are dangerous places, but it does give people a chance to be outside and not to be close to one another inside of our model home. So I think more than ever, getting to know one another to form a partnership, an arm's length partnership on behalf of the client is more important than ever, because it's a little more challenging now than what it was in the past. But we have to continue to do that in order to not be part of the problem. Our realtor community and our builder community need to be part of the solution to this. Our clients are already on edge for one reason or another, and we just have to redouble our efforts to work closer to each other. And even though it's over the phone or a Zoom meeting, to get to know each other, know each other's priorities, and understand that client so that we can together put that package together for them for their best interest and allow them to continue on the path. Because again, it comes back to money at some point. And unless that transaction closes, then we've all been kind of spinning our wheels. So it's just more than ever to partner as opposed to oppose. If that made sense.
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, for us, I'm proud to say that we have a 100% COBRA record at our neighborhood here in Chapel Hill. And the Chapel Hill market is a little bit different than other markets in the Triangle. It's very much realtor centric. I would suggest that realtors should promote the advantages of new construction with their clients, remembering that with existing homes, there's likely to be a multiple offer environment that can be an emotional roller coaster for their clients.
We've got a tech fail. Jan, you're frozen. So Pat, why don't you go ahead and start with the questions, and hopefully Jan's internet will reboot itself.
Okay. One of the questions that we had was, do you anticipate price increases, or do you think they'll, what are your anticipations for prices over the next year?
May I?
Yes, please.
Jeff, thank you.
Okay, so I've heard that before, where I wanted to comment on that because I have heard this before. It comes back to, in my opinion, my business opinion, and it's been in real estate a long time, it comes back to supply and demand. And today, in the market, in the Triangle, land is not easy to come by still. And we've had a lot of high volume builders enter this marketplace. Almost all of the decent sized home building companies that do production are here, and they're all competing for land, leaving less and less land. And I'm speaking from a luxury custom home building standpoint right now. Land's harder to come by. The odds of land prices coming down between now and next year, to me, are very low. In fact, I've seen the opposite, land prices going up. It's a supply and demand situation. And I have a few very specific examples I won't bore you with right now, but it's significant that the owners of the land have profited over the last 6 months from holding land. On the other side, construction, products, materials, labor, I don't see it. We are hanging on dearly to keep prices from going up. Lumber dramatically increased on us about 1.5 years ago. It is stable right now, but certain parts of that market are commodity based and they can go up at any time. So I do not see that. Stability, we'd be lucky to keep it stable, but odds are prices will continue, values will continue to increase in the order of 5% a year, in my opinion, despite this COVID situation. It has to do with interest rates, has to do with accessibility of money, Also supply and demand of materials and labor and land. And I don't see that getting out of balance here in the Triangle anytime soon.
Holly, okay if I jump in for a second on that? All right. I did see a recent report about lumber and materials that that relates to exactly what Jeff mentioned, which is supply and demand. And one of the things that I think that either manufacturing and production was forced to slow down based on the pandemic. I think maybe also that they anticipated a slowdown in materials purchases. Then we have a bunch of folks who are at home and going, you know what, I've got a couple weeks, I'm going to rebuild my deck. And they're buying a bunch of materials on a homeowner basis from the big box stores. And I think the result in that has been that there's been a upswing on some basic building materials numbers. Whether that's something that's going to ultimately smooth out and just go on the more or less consistent trajectory that Jeff described is anybody's guess at this point. On another level for us, one of the biggest factors that drives the cost of our projects is how long it takes us to do them. So if my costs will go up if this lasts a whole heck of a lot longer and I have to force slowdown of our jobs based on limited number of people in our construction sites and inside. So from at least in terms of our direct cost driving the cost ultimately to our clients, that's something that at least is a concern to me on the horizon. As of today, primarily because we're working on existing agreements, our company has absorbed the cost of extending the schedule for any given job based on the pandemic. So, thanks.
Pat, do you want to offer the next question, or would you like Jan to chime in on cost? I've been texting him, so he's pretty much caught up.
I would love to have Jan continue to comment if he can.
Well, thank you. And I'm so sorry for my Zoom glitch. This is part of, we just did this to show the travails of the modern age. But actually, we are expecting costs to go up. Primarily labor costs, because of the challenges that we've already been facing with labor pressure, are even more exacerbated by the virus. And the state has identified both medical personnel and construction as being hot pockets here in North Carolina of new infections. So that's going to diminish our labor force. When you have basic economics of fewer people, we expect prices to go up. Not immediately, because Lennar, like many big builders and like some big companies, we hedge against volatility by having contracts that are fixed for the next, say, 6-month period. But I do expect a higher level of cost, considerably higher level, like up to 5 to 10% internal increase in labor by the time we get to 2021.
Super. We had another question, but sort of you kind of hit on it with your technology question problem there, and that is, do you see that there'll be a trend to move a little bit further out as a result of what's happened with COVID, where people said, "Oh, I don't necessarily need to be close in because I don't have to go into my office every day." Do you think we'll see some movement a little bit more to the rural areas in terms of new construction and whatnot? I know that always tends to be the realm of the lower end homes, as we look now in Orange County out at Mebane and some of those areas where you've got some first-time home buyer. But do you see a trend to push outward, or you think we're going to continue to be city-centric?
Let's start with Jeff, then Randy and Jan.
I think that's been a good question at a broad scale. I think locally, though, to bring it home, that the lead time on new communities coming online is very long, as Jan will be able to speak to. I mean, it's a year, 2, 3, before you can get land online. So what that would mean is that developers would have to look ahead at the marketplace 2 or 3 years from now to see that trend coming to go further and further away. So my personal opinion is that this COVID situation, although it has been challenging for us in the short term, is not necessarily going to cause a huge shift in where people want to live. That's just my personal opinion. I'm already seeing this with our upper end buyers that they want to be further away. So by the time I ever meet a client, they're already to the point of having gone through Jan perhaps maybe once or twice, his company, as they started their families and their families grew and they've had their big home, and now they want to scale back and they want space. They want a pool, they want privacy. Those things aren't going to change. So I think what'll push my clients around is where the land actually is. And it's a pretty slow process for new custom communities to come on the ground. And frankly, we didn't, 3 to 4 months ago, we didn't know what COVID was. So I believe that that blip is not going to be enough to be a seismic shift in the real estate industry around the triangle, although there's logic to it. And if our participants right now, maybe selling a condo downtown might be tough, in a metro area right now because people are going through that process of thinking about that. But from my standpoint as a luxury custom home builder, I don't think COVID is going to have a major impact on that anytime in the foreseeable future, personally.
Okay.
So I'm going to answer this anecdotally again on sort of a small scale. And also make it fairly personal and wrap in the broadband question. I live on a farm. It's where I am right now. And one of the things, why we feel incredibly fortunate is because this is a great place to shelter in place. If you live far out, it's rural. We can walk our dogs and not see anybody. It's low density. It's a really peaceful and safe place to be during a pandemic. But relative to, I guess it's Mary's question, I fought for 13 years after we bought this farm to get fiber out here. And I finally won. That was 7 years ago. And that's why I'm able to actually do this now. But it was this horrible mishmash of paper data, satellite kind of stuff that was not successful. So I also really question whether that sort of immediate experience of being, of commuting less, driving less, and being in a more rural area will ultimately last much past the pandemic. I actually don't. If I had to guess, I would say I don't think so. But I do know for certain that there is that it's unlikely that we'll develop much past the bounds of access to excellent broadband service. So anyway, thanks. That's it for me on this one.
Okay.
Thanks, Randy. So I think the Triangle will remain a suburban market with density far less than a New York City or Washington, D.C. or San Francisco. That being said, we've had a real burst of multifamily energy here in the Triangle, with 100 people coming into the Triangle every day for years. And what I am seeing is what was an expedient solution to live in attached or apartment living. I see a strong trend back toward evidencing that preference long held for single-family detached living. I know in our neighborhood, we're seeing people who are coming to us looking for more space because they found that by being at home, they need not one but two offices and even a schoolroom or a recreation room in the home. So it's worked well for us in attracting families who are seeing that even post-COVID, that there will be, that the home will also be a workplace.
If I could throw in a last question and observation here for you guys to respond to, sort of tying into what you were just saying, Jan. Dr. Ewan, who was the chief economist for NAR, we had him last week, and he was talking about the same thing, that he thinks there's going to be a trend to bigger spaces for than over the last couple of years. Everyone's been going smaller, and now it looks like the trend is going to be to bigger. Tied in with that, what are you seeing from a builder standpoint of what are the new things that buyers are looking for in houses? What are the new upgrades that people are looking for, that you're seeing requests for, that you haven't seen so much in the past? What are you seeing from buyers in terms of what they're looking for different than what they have been in the past?
Let's go quick speed round. Jan, Jeff, and Randy, and I will just thank you all for having us today. It's been great, and we hope to continue this awesome partnership with y'all.
Super.
Well, I would say home automation, which was kind of a cool little thing. Oh, look, I've got a Ring doorbell. Now it's a necessity. We're doing a Wi-Fi signal amplification in every home, and it's becoming, once customers experience no dead zones, it's becoming the only way to live. So I think that is that, and as I mentioned, the discrete spaces for studies or offices or kids gathering places is becoming not just an option, but now a necessity.
Great.
A couple things. Trends continue away from formal dining to casual dining. We see that now. And new spaces, exercise. So I guess someone earlier, maybe Randy, you about sheltering in place. I feel that more strongly than ever, people want to make sure that this house can be their sanctuary. And exercise space is a new one for me to actually put it on a blueprint that's literally there and literally set up for this. And they're giving up that formal dining. If you had to look at it, step back a couple of steps, giving up spaces that are marginally effective, including soaking tubs and master bathrooms, and putting that space in more effective places for long term. We're also seeing continued trend toward multi-generational living and new construction, that they wanted, this is the last house, and they want to be able to make sure that home serves them for years to come.
Super. Randy?
One of the things that it's a trend we're already seeing, and I agree with Jeff and Jan about the questions that they're hearing or the requests that they're hearing. But I would add on offices, one of the things that's coming up again and again and again may not even be size, but more audio privacy. Do I even have a nook, a separate private nook where I can have this conversation or what have you? It doesn't have to be a lot of space. It just has to be quiet and protected and separate. So I'm seeing that request for those home workspaces that they're increasing. I agree. I'm seeing an increase in space requests for exercise in the home. And relative to the multi-generational living, I think it's worth talking a little bit more about, we're seeing increased requests for accessory dwelling units, whether they're separate or attached to the home. And I think that often relates either to multi-generational living or folks that are preparing in the future, at least in the end of the market where we're working, which is more of the higher end market, where they might be preparing for a caregiver to be able to stay at their home if they're planning on, not to be morbid, but if they're planning on coming out of their home in a box, they want to be able to have that plan sort of all the way forward for aging in place and being okay. So,
well, super.
Thank you.
I want to thank Holly and the Home Builders Association and all of our panelists today for joining us. I hope that we'll be able to do some more of these in the future, because I think it's a great way for us to learn more and have a better relationship with you guys, which hopefully leads to more transactions for both of us. Holly, you have any final comments?
No, just thanks so much. This was great. I appreciate all that you and the OCHAR folks put into the questions, and I would love to do it again.
Super. Thanks. Well, y'all have a great day. Be safe.
Bye. Thank you all.